Hello, I am Sarah Jane Steele, and welcome to Do Yoga with me. And today's practice, which is a yin release for the spine. You may need to have some bolsters handy. You can look on our website if you want to know how to make your own, and perhaps some pillows, but just get used to being still and quiet and released. Enjoy. Welcome. Although this is a yin practice, we'll just do a little bit of movement, starting in a seated cross-legged position or sukhasana to awaken the spine. And that way, if you have come from a day at work, or if you're just waking up, we're not necessarily going right into those deep, dark, sort of stiff places in the body without first giving you a little bit of movement. You're going to switch directions. If you're newer to a yoga practice, you're breathing in and out through your nose. If you're very familiar with Ujjayi breath, then you're starting to create that heat in your body by breathing down into the abdomen on the exhalation, lifting the pelvic floor up on the exhalation. Good. And tuck your hands underneath your thigh bones and round back. Your sensation that you're after is that you're pushing your spine out of your back. One more deep full breath in. Really spread the ribs on the back body. And out. As you come back onto your sitting bones and all the way back up again. We're going to begin with bound angle pose or Baddha Konasana. For some that have lots of flexibility in the hips, but they're a little bit rigid in the back, you may want to bring your your heels closer to you. But if you do have a little bit of restriction in the hips, then you might want to take pillows or something underneath the knees so that you don't feel that you're overstressing the knees and there isn't a lot of control in the body. You can also have your heels quite far away from you if you're newer to the practice and you don't want to go too deep. So we begin by walking forward. And as with any yin practice, you're trying to get yourself into a position where you feel a release, in this case in your spine, but you don't feel that you've gotten any sharpness or any resistance in the posture. And we're going to be in this posture for 3 minutes. And at around the halfway point, I'm going to invite you to take it a little bit deeper. But for now, you're just feeling rounded through your lower back, soft through your belly on the inhalation, release through your torso on the exhalation, so you're feeling the chest becoming heavy as well as the arms. And perhaps you're closing the eyes. And be prepared, whether you're a new yogi or a long practicing yogi, that you are going to meet resistance one way or the other. And our first instinct, especially in our yoga culture, is to move and do something different. But in yin, you're actually encouraged to stay in the discomfort as long as the discomfort is not pain. And in fact, to embrace it. So embrace that feeling in the very center line of the buttocks up into the sacrum of it, stretching slightly or releasing. Embrace that feeling of the erector spinae, so those little muscles on the sides of the spine, elongating and stretching out. They get really short, and sometimes we're so comfortable with them feeling short that we feel uncomfortable lengthening them. If your head is too heavy to hold, come down onto your elbows if that's available to you, or elbows on the shins, and tent your forehead in your hands. And then just stay and breathe. Last 3 breaths. Really, on the breath out, you want to feel there's no activation of the spine. Very, very released and heavy. You finish the exhale, and then on your inhalation, you lift the head up if it's not already lifted. Take the hands onto the mat, press actively into them to just lift and extend through the spine ever so slightly. Walk the hands back. We always move out very, very slowly and very, very mindfully. We're going to expand on this one, getting into the sacroiliac joints on the back, which definitely has an interplay and why we feel spine tension and discomfort. So you don't have to overly flex your feet. Again, we're not after these very active poses in yin, but just let the toes be facing up towards the ceiling instead of letting the ankles flop too far outwards or inwards. And we're going to move into the side line of the right sacroiliac joint. So you can bring your elbow down onto your thigh and extend your other arm up and reach it over the head. Palms facing slightly inwards, pinky facing down to the floor. If that feels too active for you, then you can always just let the arm relax and hold on to the side of the head, or just let the arm collapse onto the side of the head. If you want to come into a deeper side bend, if you have lots of flexibility, the elbow comes down onto the inside of the calf and the other arm reaches over the head and you just touch the toes. We don't necessarily grip or bind the toes like we would in a regular asana practice, because we don't want to add too much muscle energy to this posture. Where you should be feeling this is all the way along the topmost part of your ribs into the center of the vertebra or the spine, down into the right hip. If you're not feeling it in the right hip, you need to anchor your right sitting bone down. And this might mean coming up slightly and readjusting to anchor it down. When you find the sweet spot, then you stay there for a minute. If you're a really progressed yogi and it doesn't require much muscular energy, you're grabbing for the pinky toe side of your foot. We'll make it completely passive for the last half minute of the posture. Take both hands to either side of the leg. Use props or supports under your elbows if you need it, and you're bringing the nose down towards the knee. Remaining 3 breaths. You can walk your hands further towards the heels for the last 3 breaths just to create more stress, good stress. And on the 1, the arms go completely limp and floppy. And we walk the hands back up towards us. We're staying on the same axis as we came into the posture. Let both sitting bones anchor down into the floor and come back to center. If that was really uncomfortable on that side, you can always be sitting on bolsters, blankets, or pillows. For now, we're going to just walk over to the opposite side. Elbow comes down onto the thigh, inside of the thigh, or inside of the shin bone. Opposite arm is reaching up towards the ceiling, and then doming towards the toes. The arm is too active, you're feeling there's too much muscle energy in the arm, you just let it go. Just bend the elbow and let it rest on top of the head. If you can grip for the toes, go for it. Or outside of the foot, pinky. So that's the furthest progression of this posture. wide-angled seated pose, yin-styled. If you notice your opposite sitting bone is lifting, anchor it down, deepen your breath. And notice that even though you're sitting and seemingly not doing anything, you're doing so much for the connective tissue and your joints. And these are never usually accessed through rigorous asana practices. The last part of the posture, change your angle, both hands to either side of the leg, pillows underneath the chest or the head or wherever you may need it, and then descending down. Eventually you might get to the point where you can line your sternum, center of the chest, up with the thigh bone. So you're rotating as you're descending forward. Slight twists of the spine are usually quite nice unless you've got a disc out of place. So if that's you, just don't revolve the twist as much. Remaining 3 breaths, so really filling up the abdominal canister with breath. On the inhalation, then exhaling to descend down, release more, release more. And then as you inhale, just pressing the back of the skull up towards the ceiling, gaze goes towards the toes, elbows lift, breathing in. Breathing out as you walk your hands all the way back up, just always moving very, very slowly so as not to shock the areas that we just got deep into. Round your back and bring your legs into a bend. You're going to swing your feet around to the back of you. And we're going to do a bit of a encased child's pose. So instead of having the toes together and the knees wide apart, please have your knees together and your feet together. If you need to place blankets underneath the top of your ankle joints or under your knees, you can do that. And you're just going to bow your body forward, reaching your hands back to cup your heels. So this form of balasana, you might want to be on top of the head. If you find your bum is really quite far away from your heels, then you can instead rest on your elbows or on the biceps. But what we're aiming to do is just let the behind release further and further back towards the heels. If what you're after today is more of a stretch for each of the individual facet joints in your spine, then you can go ahead and extend the arms out and just push into the hands just gently enough that you're not firing up your shoulders too much, and you're just pressing that tailbone back towards the heels. We're going to stay here for a full 3 minutes. What's lovely about the stillness of these practices is that you can actually feel how you're helping the inner workings of the body. So you're giving your organs a really nice long break just so they can dangle out of the chest and the belly cavity a little bit. Getting into your kidney and your liver lines. And this is where the healing that everyone talks about that comes along with yoga comes from. If you're really enjoying this, if this is what suits you, you stay here. If you want to get more into the left side of your erector spinae, those are the little finger-like muscles that extend off the spine, you can walk your hands to the right. Come down with the chest, still focusing on keeping your left sitting bone heavy. So opposite sitting bone to the direction you're going in is remaining heavy. If you've chosen to go to one side, you're going to walk your hands back and be sure that you do the other side, walking your hands over to the opposite corner of the mat, perhaps even off the mat. Laying the chest down on the thigh bones, but anchoring and making that right sitting bone heavy. If you're in the side bend, please make your way back towards the center. If you're in the center, take 3 more breaths, breathing in. All the way out to feel heaviness in the back of the hips, particularly focusing on your sacrum. It's a somewhat immobile part of your spine, so you're breathing, trying to carry the inhalation all the way down to the tail and the sacrum, and out. And then just press the back of the skull up. Lift the elbows off the floor. Walk your hands back towards you. Ever so slowly. Bring yourself up. We'll wring the spine out by doing a gentle twist. You'll take your right arm behind your back. You can just grab onto your pants if you need to, or onto your shirt. If you have the ability to grab onto the inner thigh or the hip, if your fingers twist that way, you're holding on to the left hip, pressing into it slightly to rotate your gaze over the right shoulder. Breathing in, out to encourage the belly button back towards the spine in Uddiyana Bandha, or the midsection abdominal lock. One more breath. And then we bring the neck spine back first, so the gaze comes back to the front first, and then we release out. We'll come to the other side for the twist, so releasing your arm back and behind you, grabbing on for the shirt, or wrapping your fingers around towards the hip crease, holding on to your pants if you need to, breathing in to bring the spine tall, breathing out to twist. And this is where the neck spine really benefits as well. We tend to think about back pain as just being about the main thoracic and lumbar vertebra, but the cervical or cervical vertebra also can take quite a lot of abuse, so we're trying to get into that neck spine as well. And then inhale your gaze back to center. And then exhale as you completely release and come out. The next posture we're going to do is lying on the back. So you're coming into a supta position. You may want to have a bolster or pillows on either side of you or on one side of you. So ease yourself down onto your side and then roll yourself onto your back or roll straight down onto your back, doesn't matter. And you're going to bring one foot off the floor at a time and bring your knees as closely into your chest as you can. If you don't have a lot of mobility in your joints, then you can even press your hands onto the hamstrings and pull with the muscles in your arms to really bring those knees into your chest. You're going to take your right hand onto the top of your left knee, so it's a bit of a rotational twist here. Other arm is going to extend out to the side with your palm facing down. You're going to drop your knees all the way to the right. Now for some who don't have a lot of flexibility in the spine, this is already going to feel like it's more than enough of a release for you. If you want to move a little bit more into the SI joints and you're already quite flexible, you bring the top knee up so the knee is coming in towards your chest, and then you can take your entire arm, the right arm, press it down onto the outside of the thigh to create some weight, some traction. And you're going to move your gaze in the opposite direction to your legs. So this does a number of things. This helps you release through the back of the pelvis and helps you release into your low back, and perhaps some of you are feeling it up into your mid back. It helps your neck spine release as you turn the gaze in the opposite direction. And it's also taking all of the energy out of the back, so the back is completely passive here. So use this last opportunity to do any fidgeting that you need to do, and then completely settle into the posture. And we'll rest here for 2 minutes with an opportunity to get a little bit deeper in the last minute. Stay here if you're enjoying the opening and the release. If you want to get into the series of muscles and the outside of the knee joint and the outside of the hip joint, you can come into a bit more of an iliotibial band stretch. So you can move your gaze up towards the ceiling. Extend your leg as much as you comfortably can towards straight, and take your right hand onto the top of the foot, just slightly pulling the toes back. And once you've reached the extension, then you do take the muscle energy out of the leg. Turn the gaze back to the opposite corner. Now this feels really deep. You shouldn't feel any sharpness on the outside of the knee. You should just feel warmth circulating around the lateral side of your leg, the outside part of your leg, into the buttock and the lower back on that top leg. And if the sensations are deep, try not to focus so much on how deep or how trying this is, but instead just focus on how many more breaths. And we're doing about 15 more breaths. Can you just focus on the in and the out breath, the empty mind, and going to those deep places in the body. For your remaining 3 breaths, just really focus on uncoiling the shoulders, any tension around the shoulders, releasing the top hip, releasing that last breath all the way down into the ground. Turn your gaze up towards the ceiling so you realign the neck. If you did extend that top leg, bring it into a bend, let both knees join each other. You're bringing your knees up towards the midline on an inhale, and on the breath out, you're coming over to the other side. Doing the same checks and balances you did on the original side, you're bringing your knees right up into the chest. You're getting deeper into the SI joints. If you lift your top knee a little bit higher, you take the weight of the arm and press down on the outside of the thigh, always avoiding your knee joint as well. And then turning your gaze towards the opposite corner. For those really busy minds in a yin practice, what you can do is just focus on looking at your body kind of in sections. So you can start with maybe taking your first minute in the posture, just focusing on how you can make your head a little bit heavier, how you can release your face muscles, how you can let that neck release more and more. Maybe move your arm lower so you're not feeling any constraints in the neck and the shoulders. And you just hover your awareness there. And then you can move your focus to what this posture is doing for the midsection. So around your belly button and the muscles and the organs of the tummy, you're giving a nice rotation through the back of the ribs, middle of the spine. You can just focus on the softness of your stomach and your diaphragm, and how your breath is actually helping to propel the posture further, letting your hip get heavier and heavier to the left, and feeling those back lines opening. It's at this point where if you do want to advance the practice a little bit more, you can turn your head up to the ceiling, extend that top leg out, take your hand to the outside of the foot, keeping it flexed so that you can really feel the benefit on the outside of the leg into the buttock and lower back. And then settle the gaze back. And the active mind is now hovering down the very back part of the pelvis that attaches to the spine. And you're feeling all the lower back completely opening, and feel there's lots of space across the lower back now. And you actually imagine the benefits of being still. It makes it easier to be still. Last 3 breaths. Maybe making them a little bit bigger. Letting the body drop back and down. And then bringing your gaze up towards the ceiling, letting the top knee come into a bend if it wasn't there already. Breathing in, out, in to bring your knees up towards the ceiling, out to take your hands under the tops of the shins and just press in. If you have the mobility in your neck and you want to round through your neck spine, you lift the head off the floor. You can hold the back of the head with the hands as well. And then release the head back down onto the floor. Bring the feet back down onto the mat. For the resting position, for Shavasana, you may want to rest your back even more, kind of bringing your legs into a bit of a caterpillar pose so you can sit yourself up if you need to get some pillows underneath your knees, and then wiggle your tailbone back and away from the knees. Separate the legs quite wide, and then lay the arms down by your sides, palms facing up. Some need to give an anterior tilt to the pelvis, so slight tucking under of the pelvis in order to feel that there's no stress on the back. Some like the spine to just come into its own neutral curve. But the objective, as always, is to just let the body completely die. I'm just going to do the bringing them out of Shavasana now.
Good.
It's been about a minute, okay? In this practice today, just to really awaken an awareness of the integrity of your spine as you're coming out of Shavasana, just wiggle your fingers and then bring your elbows into a bend and place your hands on the lower tummy. And you're going to bring your breath all the way down to the lower tummy on the inhalation. Feel it bubble up under your fingers. And as you're breathing out, you're going to lift the muscles on the inside of your sitting bones, in, up, and back. So you're establishing Mula Bandha, or your pelvic floor. On your next inhalation, you let those muscles slightly release. When you breathe out, please bring your belly button down to the floor, so you're breathing your belly button back and down. That's the mid-spine. Next breath, you release those muscles on the inhale, and on the exhale, you tuck your chin down slightly, pressing the back of your skull slightly into the floor, creating the upper body lock. And it's these 3 energy centers that you want to tap into to have a strong core, a strong spine. Bring your arms back and behind your head, make the body long. Bring the knees into a bend one at a time. Roll yourself onto your side. Rest here. Press into your bottom hand. Guide yourself up to seated position. If your spine feels open, you should feel comfortable sitting on your bottom, but you can also elevate your hips if you like, so that you can pull the spine nice and tall to finish our practice. Namaste. Thank you for joining me today.